This week on Unapologetic Uplift.
I have taught manifestation. And something that I have caught myself saying is, well, it's not just a wish. There's a technology behind this.
You don't just make a wish on your birthday. Really take that seriously and do that with intention. And this was something I talked about a lot. Like wishes were technology that's been lost.
Did you realize every time you make a wish, you engage over a dozen different sciences? Like, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Well, and I love too that this is the kind of work that is accessible to everyone. It doesn't matter where you are socioeconomically. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We all have access to this technology.
Some people do think when they say manifesting, they're thinking, you do these things, you're going to get what you want because that's law of attraction and it's going to happen and there's no other way around it. And if you didn't get it, you did it wrong. And that's very toxic. Right?
What is science? I mean, I can tell you why I get giddy is it is the pursuit of finding the truth. It's looking for evidence. It's looking under and seeing how things work and finding ways to solve and answer problems. And how is that not also spiritual?
What happens when you repeat a wish every day, then you start activating neuroplasticity. It's kind of like, have you ever thought about buying a certain model of car and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, right? That's your brain working on your behalf.
Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift. I am your host, Ianthe Morrow, with my amazing co-host, Kim Staples, and a very special guest today, Brownell Landrum. Brownell Landrum found us by listening to our podcast, reached out. We were thrilled to find out that Brownell has something called Cosmic Wish Experiment. Of course, I was leaning into that and excited. So Brownell, what brought you to this moment of, first of all, I did say a lot there in the opening. I already like the cat's out of the bag. Cosmic Wish Experiment. Cosmic Wish Experiment. When I looked at your website, by the way, which is, we're going to give it all in the show notes and you can explain at the end. We always ask our guests to say how we can best find you. But I noticed on your website, I got very excited because you talk about wishes in a way that I also relate to, which is it's a very intentional thing. And you even talk about the wishing on your birthday, which you don't know this about me, but my former career, I had a candle company called Objects with Purpose that I started in 2009. And one of my taglines was that when you make a wish on your birthday, you can do that with intention. Don't just make a wish on your birthday. Really take that seriously and do that with intention. And this was something I talked about a lot, like wishes were technology that's been lost. So I'm saying that to say, I'm very excited. It's titillating for me to talk to someone who cares about wishes as much as I do and understands them in the way I do. I feel that's you. So now I'm handing you the mic. Let us know how you came to this. What are wishes to you? And what is this Cosmic Wish Experiment?
Yeah, there's a lot of places we can go. So I have a feeling we'll go off on tangents and feel free to, I'm not going to just ramble. I'm going to give you some headlines and then you can ask more. I do like to start out saying I'm not a scientist. I play one on TV. No, I'm an explorer and a storyteller. So I'm still exploring. So if anybody listens to this or watches and says, okay, wait a minute, I have something to add to that or something new, or maybe she didn't say this right, feel free to pop in because I'm still learning and still exploring. In fact, I started a blog the other day that started a whole Substack, and the opening is welcome explorers because we're here exploring together. So I always want to make sure people know that. And the reason I did a blog is because I wrote the book and then all of a sudden it's like, but I got more and more. But the genesis is that I was writing a novel. I've written a bunch of metaphysical novels, and I came up with a trilogy like a year and a half ago that's like this epic reincarnation mystery and love story and all this kind of stuff. So I like writing the fiction, and my tagline for my fiction is lose yourself in the fiction, find yourself in the truth. And so I was writing a novel that's semi-autobiographical, and I thought and I wrote it, a lot of it from the point of view of what I call the upstairs. And as I was writing, I thought and it was written in 4 parts because life is kind of like that. And I got to the 4th part and I thought I'm going to write this about wishes and wishing. So I just started to imagining a world upstairs where wishes are, like this whole system where they're gathered and sorted and granted, and there's wish fairies and all this kind of magical world. And so when you're writing, you kind of get into this world building mindset, like, well, what does the world look like? And who are the people? And how does it work? And what's the difference between a wish, a prayer, and a goal? And how do you define a wish? And all these kinds of things. So my mind was in this place. And now I know that's the default mode network, which you all probably know about. But that's really one of the coolest things that I've learned throughout this whole thing. And
Say that again.
oh, the default mode network.
Default mode network. I'm just
Looking
going
into
to
that. Yeah. And then one night I was listening to a science lecture, because sometimes when I can't sleep, I listen to science. And usually it's cat. But this time, instead of putting me to sleep, it woke me up. I was like, wait a minute, is there science in wishing? And that led to this, monster book that I came out with, The Art and Science of Wishing, which I cite over 70 different scientists and dozens of sciences. So that's one of my kind of opening questions is, did you realize every time you make a wish, you engage over a dozen different sciences? Like, that's pretty mind-blowing. So that's kind of how it led in me to kind of exploring this whole world of wishes. And then how I define a cosmic wish versus a wish is when you apply science. So you've got your wish, but when you start applying the science, then you can turn it into a cosmic wish. So there's my little preamble, and you can take it wherever you want.
Kim, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, there's so much there. It was so fun. And I love how you mentioned the difference between a wish, a prayer, and what was that? A wish, a prayer,
Goal.
and a goal.
And a goal.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you could even add on to that a manifestation.
Yes, and then where does that fit in? And I get into that definitely in the book and that's like wishes. Wishes generally have more of a magical, whimsical kind of mentality when people first get into them. But like you said, Ianthe, did I say your
Ianthe.
Ianthe, sorry. Ianthe said is that they actually are more meeting than you think, especially if you take them more seriously and more intentional and more focused. So it's interesting to see how that all fits together. But I'm happy to go down whatever road y'all want to go down. But that's
I know.
I want to start.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kim.
I have taught manifestation, right? And something that I have caught myself saying is, well, it's not just a wish, right? It's like, we're not just going to sit in our mom's basement and make a wish. There's a technology behind this. So yeah, I would love to dive deeper in that. But what were you going to say, Ianthe?
Well, I made a point of stopping you and asking you to repeat the default mode network. You said that you thought we knew. I actually have never heard of the default mode network. And I am the one on our podcast that's always wanting to define terms. So if I haven't heard of it or it lands and I think I need to define that, I stop and we do it. So what is default mode network?
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll probably get back to it because I'm just going to give you kind of the headlines now because I think Kim was right. Maybe the basics we start with, and then we can get into the deeper stuff. I am going to tell you all, because I don't know that I told you, is I actually just delivered a TEDx talk. And I explained that it hasn't launched yet. So please look for it. But that was a big deal.
Very big deal. Congratulations.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. I delivered it about a month ago, but it could take 2 or 3 months before it comes out. So you never know when it's going to come out. But in there, what I do is I start and I say, imagine you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake, or you see a shooting star, or you're throwing a coin into a fountain. What do you wish for? And so that's kind of the opening, is to get people to think, okay, what would they wish for? And then I say, do you realize you engage all these sciences? And then I take them through 5 different science examples. And one of them is the default mode network. And it's something we all have experienced. And yet I think we haven't necessarily understood the definition of it and how it can work in our favor. I'm guessing that you're familiar with the reticular activating system. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I am.
Right, because I talk about that too. And so the reticular activating system it's a good preamble to get to the default mode network. And what happens when you repeat a wish every day, then you start activating neuroplasticity, which we can go down into that road. And that's exactly doing what you're talking about, Ianthe. Did I say it right?
You did. You said it perfectly.
That's exactly what you're talking about in terms of taking it more seriously, like it's real and it's a technology. It's an actual thing if you put the right aspect to it. And so repeating it every day is important. Having a ritual, and that's one thing that manifestation doesn't generally have, is a ritual, a daily ritual, and wishing does, right? Whether it's a time on the clock or a certain thing you do, or you're brushing your teeth, or first time your feet hit the floor in the morning, or whatever it is that you decide for a ritual. And rituals that go back millennia, right? I mean, that's part of our anthropology, which is one of the sciences. And so when you do that, when you do repeat a wish and you make it clear in your brain, it's something you really want, right? It's not just you blew out the candles and then the next day you forgot what you wished for. This is something that you really wish for, that it activates a part of your brain that is looking for those solutions. It's kind of like, have you ever thought about buying a certain model of car and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, right? That's your brain working on your behalf. And so you can, and I love to talk about this because I love the idea that I could be talking to people that are seriously into science and don't care about the woo-woo stuff at all. Or I could be talking to the people into the woo-woo world or the spiritual world, the religious world, and they have a different definition for the same experience, which is like, all of a sudden I started seeing these signs. Like I'm getting these messages and seeing these signs. And that's what the reticular activating system is, showing those solutions. All of a sudden you meet people who've accomplished that wish or that goal, and you start seeing all these opportunities that you might have missed because your brain is wired to look for them. And default mode network is kind of the opposite, but it works in your behalf in such a really cool way. And as a writer, one of my favorite examples is the writer Aaron Sorkin. Are you familiar with him? Yeah. And when he talks about writing, he says when he's in writing mode, he will sometimes take 7 showers a day. And it's not because he's feeling dirty. It's because he understands, without necessarily knowing the language of the default mode network. We used to think, we just turned our brain off, so that opened, that was what allowed it to happen. We now know that there's a specific part of our brain that turns off and another part that turns on. When we're in that imagination world, when we're in that, we're not thinking about it anymore. And all of a sudden that we're opening up that portal to solving a problem we set, or answering a question we set way in advance. One of my favorite examples of it, there's a bunch of examples. And now that I say it, y'all are probably thinking, yeah, I know about this, and I do this. One of my favorite examples is the story of Albert Einstein and how he came up with the theory of relativity. Are you familiar with that story?
Share it.
He basically was imagining what it'd be like to float alongside a beam of light. Like he was with that light and they were going on this trip together, right? So he was opening up that imagination that put him in a different mindset that helped him solve that problem, right? So it's a different part of your brain. It's when you're imagining, envisioning the future. I was talking to a neuroscientist the other day and they're like, yes, but the default mode network can be that part of you that spirals negatively, and it can. But it can also be that part that opens up the possibilities depending on how you're targeting it and how you're focusing it. But you're focusing without focusing, which is what makes it weird. So does that make sense, or do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. And I love that it's the word imagination, and picturing and imagining and envisioning is such a huge part of all of this. And maybe it's the thing that, because you mentioned wish, prayer, goal, all of these being different, I could say modalities in a way towards the same goal, right? And I love also that you're bridging, you have this beautiful bridge that you're creating between people who might call themselves religious and very serious in their religion, and there's a dogma and there's a certain way you do things. And for them, maybe that's prayer. But we pull back and we see this beautiful, I don't know, I imagine a lot. So I'm now imagining a lot and I'm doing things visually here, but I'm imagining this gorgeous umbrella, right, that you're holding, and underneath it, you've got people that are coming to this imagining with prayer. And then there are people that are coming to with they have a goal. They have a goal mindset. They're setting this goal and they're going to take action toward the goal. And then you have people like him and I who believe that we manifest, and the way we manifest is we begin with an idea, we visualize something that we want. It's like a wish, very close to a wish. And then we take action towards that. We don't believe it just happens spontaneously, but we actually have to be a part of it. So all of that is so beautiful and empowering. And I'm so excited that you're bringing this to the world in the way that you did, and that our audience now is going to have a way to understand wishes in a different light. So how do you personally wish? And do you do this on a daily basis? And have you seen results from your wishes?
Yes, and yes, and yes. And it's funny because, as I said, I'm still exploring all of this, right? So I'm like only a few steps, like if you imagine a road, I'm just a few steps down the road and other people are with this, I'm not like, oh, I'm at the end and come visit me. I'm still learning and still opening up that pathway and still learning it. And it's interesting because there's so much I talk about in the book. And like I said, we can go so many, but I talk about how the 4 responses to a wish. And that it's really important to understand that dynamic and to know that it's either yes, no, wait, or something better. And when you start understanding that yes may not always be the right answer or the best answer, right? And no might be exactly what you need at the time, right? Wait might be a lesson in patience, or it might be some things you need to do before you're ready. And something better, a lot of times we get, especially with goals, and that's why I am going to interject and say that what I see the difference between a wish, a prayer, and a goal. And that with goals, it's usually so definitive that it doesn't allow for something better. And so that is one of the limitations. So the way I look at a goal is that something in your control. Right? You set a plan, you make it happen. You've got steps you can do. I'm going to get that degree, or I'm going to run that marathon, or whatever that is. And most of it, for the most part, is in your control. I mean, things happen, but for the most part, it's in your control. And then a prayer is usually for the things outside of your control. When you're asking for help from another dimension or energy or whatever. And the thing I love about wishes, and the way I define, especially when you're looking at cosmic wishes, is it's kind of both. It's got an element of what's in your control. And then it also allows for what I call cosmic collaboration, and that collaboration can come from quantum physics, or it can come from other people, or it can come from a spiritual being. It can come from a lot of different places. It's opening up to know it's more. So in that way, wishes can be more than goals or prayers, and allow for both within that same framework. And I'm just going to interject another interjection. As I was talking to somebody, he says, well, I have this goal of losing 15 pounds, and that's my goal, and I'm going to be on that. And I said, yes. And if you start evolving it, if you were turning it into a wish, it might be, I want to feel really good. I want to have a relationship with my body that feels good, and that my clothes feel good, and I like what I look like in the mirror. And that is a much more powerful thing than I'm going to lose 15 pounds and you're going to freaking force your body to do something the body probably doesn't want to do. So that's an example of how a goal can sometimes not be the best thing.
Right.
So, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, when I'm manifesting something, or when I'm teaching somebody to manifest something, I always say, if you're not getting what it is you're manifesting, it is either because there is something better, or because there's a lesson that needs to be learned before you get the thing, right? It's not because God, the universe, or whatever, doesn't want to give it to you. You can have anything.
Right. Or there's a flaw, right? There's something wrong with you. You didn't manifest it right. You didn't do the right vision board, or whatever that is, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you have to be open for something better. It's like, no, not now. It's a redirection, or there is something that you just need to learn. So you need to be open to receiving that divine guidance and following the breadcrumbs, so to speak, because you're not going to get the whole path. You're going to get the next step. And then when you take that, it opens up for divine synchronicity, or whatever the case is. So it sounds very, very similar.
Yeah, well, and that's the important aspect, is that you're bringing in that part, because some people do think, when they say manifesting, they're thinking, you do these things, you're going to get what you want, because that's law of attraction and it's going to happen and there's no other way around it. And if you didn't get it, you did it wrong. And that's very toxic, right? And I have a whole chapter on that in my book, is like the problems and pitfalls when people start judging others. Because one of the other things that I get into is the difference between wants versus needs. And a lot of times we start out with a want, and it's not what we needed. And this is where it gets fun as a storyteller, right? Because I look at books and movies and stories that I write, and you start a character, and usually they start out wanting something, and by the end, they don't want that anymore. They want something different, right? I don't know if you're a Legally Blonde fan, but she starts in that movie, she wants to marry that guy. By the end, I'm not marrying you. Are you kidding me? You're not what I want at all. Right. So she needed to go through that process to find what she needed, which is to learn how to be on her own and find her own strength instead of just, so as when you look at stories and you look at yourself thinking, okay, I might want that Ferrari in my driveway, but do I need a Ferrari in my driveway? Like, am I going to be happy tomorrow that I got that Ferrari? What if my neighbor gets a fancier one? And so that's where it's important to kind of get into understanding that aspect of it as well.
Mhm.
I love that. It's deeply layered. It's back to it. The word why came to me really strongly when you were speaking that about getting really specific with what you need versus what you want. If you're clear on your core values and your why is very clear, you're going to probably wish in a way that is more about what really is for you and not necessarily what's maybe a surface level desire thing. And so I believe the results will be better. And
Yeah.
I do think this is a technology, and I love that you've brought science into it. I also, one question I had before we even started, when I first was looking at your website and just getting what you're giving, which is beautiful, I thought to myself, what would be really helpful for our audience to understand is when you obviously are so inspired by this idea that you got, and you're now finding ways to gather information and share it. What gives you the confidence? Because you've said more than once since we've been talking that you don't have all of the answers, that you're still on a path and you're still learning and you're still unsure, you're still questioning. So what gives you the confidence to launch something to the world? Maybe I would say before you're completely done or ready, or what is that? Because I think that is so encouraging for our listeners to know.
It is interesting that, first of all, I think that when this was all coming to me and as I was writing the book, it felt like everything I'd ever done in my whole life has led to this. Like, it felt like all of this convergence of my first book I wrote is called 5 Reasons Why Bad Things Happen. So people say everything happens for a reason. I'm like, yeah, I wrote the book on it. And when you're talking about why, it's all about the why, right? It's just the whole, and that's the big, by the way, you want to know the 5 reasons they all have in common is why.
Yeah.
You got to get to the why. If you figure out why this is happening, then you can get to the solution, right? So that's the big message there. So that set up such a framework on the 3 selves and so much of this kind of learning. And that was quite a while ago that I wrote that. And then all the fiction I wrote, and then I've written screenplays, all these different things. And then I also wrote a book called The Hero's Playbook, where I get into activities and exercises, and I had a training company. So it feels like everything I've ever done led to creating this thing. The area that I am still very much an explorer on so the methodologies and the frameworks are solid. Those are, like I talk about, you need to have the 3 Ps when you make a wish, and we can come back to that. And the 3 selves is important, and the want versus need, and some of these things we've talked about. Those are foundational. Those are there. Those are locked in. Those are not likely. They're not going to change. They are, and they're validated by science as well, right? So that it's not like I expanded from that. Where it's getting interesting is, and where it's still exploring is, more sciences are proving more things and more theories and more beliefs and more ideas. And so I keep finding something new. Like, for example, after I wrote the book, it's like, wait a minute, is there science in the word wish? Like the phonetics of the energy of the word wish, right? I mean, it's a beautiful goal is like this hard thing, but wish is like this release. It's this, and so wish.
Could be like an onomatopoeia almost.
Totally.
It is. It is.
Right?
It's got this
Love it.
beautiful energy to it. So that's an example of, wait a minute, I got another idea I got to research. So that's why I thought I can write a blog with all these add-on things. And so that's the important thing. And then the foundations, like I said, are still very much a key part of it. And so, the blog allows me to go off on tangents. One thing I think y'all are like is I talk about what I call the blue balloon phenomenon. And the idea there is, imagine you're driving home and you envision a blue balloon in your driveway. Just out of nowhere, there's a blue balloon in your driveway. And you drive up and there's a blue balloon in your driveway. How did that get there? And in the book, I explained, I think, 3 reasons. And since then, I have a dozen. So that gives you an idea of, like, it could keep going and going. There could be 2 dozen by the end of the year. I don't know. So I don't know if that answers your question, because I went off on tangents like I've been, but
Yeah. And
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Kim.
I say we've talked about before numerous times, but most recently, the beginner's mindset, right? And it's like, people think a lot of people have this fixed mindset and they're like, I am going to start here and I'm going to get here. This is the goal. And then I have arrived and now I'm the expert and there's nothing else to learn. And I call complete bullshit on that for everybody. We are all constantly evolving and learning, and there's no arrival, whether it's in healing and spirituality, like in anything. And I very much take this mindset on and live by this. It's like I am constantly a student of life. And yes, there is mastery level at things, but there's always more to learn. And it never ends. It never ends. I don't care who you are or what you do. If you're in any profession, you should be continuously learning and evolving and growing to best serve your clients, your customers, whoever it is. So I think that's absolutely beautiful, and kudos to you.
Thank you. It's just authentic who I am, right? Because otherwise people go, how can you write these woo-woo books and then this science book? And like, how does this all come together? And I'm just going to be me. This is me.
We're finding more and more, even here on Unapologetic Uplift, I think almost every one of our conversations has an intersection of spirituality and science. I think that we're at a place now where it's so connected. And anyway, what is science? What is science? I mean, I can tell you when I say that and why I get giddy is it is the pursuit of it's finding the truth. It's looking for evidence. It's looking under and seeing how things work and finding ways to solve and answer problems. And how is that not also spiritual? I find that it's so connected. So what you're doing is perfect timing, and we all need more wishes. Here's the other thing. I just believe that wishing we even more of it. And so for you to encourage it and to encourage people who may have felt like it was too woo-woo for them, or may feel like maybe it's childish because they only think of it in terms of a birthday cake and they haven't done that since they were 12. But you're now encouraging a technology that will help. I believe that wishes are vital to us having better quality of life on so many levels. So I'm a huge fan of what you're doing for that reason. And my question to you is, what age do you think? Is there an age where people can start really wishing? Is there any age around this? Or is this absolutely painless?
I mean, I created, you mentioned the Cosmic Wish Experiment. I also have these, I mentioned it before we talked, but I've got these science cards and they've got sciences on the back. I've got activity cards, so they've got activities. I want to see these in schools, right? I want to see kids playing with this. I want to see kids going, because they understand wishes and wishing. And so even if you're explaining to something like the reticular activating system, that may be terminology that sounds, and I wrote a children's book. And I'll tell you about what that tells. And that I had somebody read the children's book, and I mentioned the polyvagal system, for example, in the children's book, right? That's big words for a 5-year-old. But I've had people reading the children's book and getting into this at reading their kids that are 5. And the 5-year-olds might gloss over that whole polyvagal thing, but they'll understand the images, because in the whole purpose of the children's book, for example, it talks about it. It starts out with totally just tell you the story. It's going to be his birthday and he's going to be 11, or I don't remember. I think of 11, 9 or 10 or 11, something like that. I have to look it up now. And his little sister says, aren't you excited? You get to make a birthday wish. And he's like, oh, wishes are silly. They're not science. And then he gets a visit from a wish fairy and he goes to the land of wishes that came up in my other book. And she shows him she shows him wishes before and after adding the science to the wish.
Beautiful. I will definitely. Where is that available? Where is the book available?
It's on Amazon, and
Okay,
and it's
I'll
called
look
Cosmic Wishes. I can show you a copy of it. I don't have it right. It's over there. And what it does is so that they use 3 examples of before and after pictures. And that's what kids get, right? They'll get the pictures. They may not necessarily get the words, but she says, okay, before, and they follow the 3 Ps. And the 3 Ps are that your wishes need to be peaceful, positive, and purposeful.
I was going to ask you the 3 Ps. You know, I was going to ask you that. So
Yeah, that's
thank
great.
you for giving that to us.
Leave that in. And so for peaceful, for example, there's a girl getting ready to take a test and she's like all nervous and she's like, I wish not to fail this test, right? And then they add the polyvagal system to make her relax, and they make her in a more peaceful mindset. And she says, I wish to feel peaceful and calm as I take this test. And then the science that we explain is that makes you more creative, that makes you more successful in taking, improves your test taking when you can get into that mindset. So you shift that energy, and that's the science of peaceful. And then on positive, the lesson is there's kind of a preteen girl and her baby sister, and her sister's trying to get her attention, but she's at her desk and she's got a computer and books in front of her. And she's like, I wish my little sister would leave me alone. I'm too busy. And then they add the science of positive, because you need to wish for and not against.
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing. And so she changes the wish to positive, and the wish is, I wish to have more time for my sister, which of course she finds. And then you've got a picture of her playing with her sister, right? She finds the time. And then on the on the purposeful one, the before wish is, there's a boy and he's got a towel around his neck and he's looking in the mirror and he's looking at himself and he says, I wish to be a superhero. And then they add purposeful, and they add the sciences of purposeful and mirror neurons and all kinds of stuff. Again, the kids might not go, what are you talking about, a mirror neuron? I know what a mirror is, but I don't know what a neuron is. And they add the part purposeful, and the reflection, instead of just being the boy, it's all these people that he's going to help. It's because he changes, I wish to be a superhero so I can help people. And then all of a sudden the reflection is the people he's going to help, as well as the people who are going to help him. So when you make the wish purposeful, you just magnified all those people that are there.
Yeah.
So it's a long answer to your short question of, I think all ages, even the ones that said my 5-year-old, they're like, he may not have understood it, but he got it, and he didn't know the language, but they still got, the parent had to read it to him.
I think they do get a lot of the words too. I think that oftentimes we think that they don't, but kids understand a lot more than we get, right? But I think that's such a great way to break it down. I teach my kids about manifestation and energy and all the things. And I've also written a children's book based on lessons that I've taught my own children. That excites me. I'm going to order the book and I will definitely read it with my kids.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to make a series, but I have to get there. I haven't gotten there yet.
Well, and I love too that this is the kind of work that is accessible to everyone. It doesn't matter where you are socioeconomically. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We all have access to this technology. And thanks to you, you make it very easy to understand at any age. So that is a huge gift that you're giving the world. And I'm really excited. I'm so happy that you found us. I feel like this is a mic drop moment, because it's really what you're doing is so powerful and so important. I wanted to see if you felt like sharing, because you flashed for a second and it was like a tease to show us those cards. Would you want to show us a little more? Like, is there a way that we could play a little bit with your cards? Is there something we could do? You could show us what that is?
What we talked about, so that the listeners can know, I just mentioned this briefly before the show, is I'm getting ready to start a podcast called Cosmic Wishes. And in that show, basically, I take people through taking their wish and turning it into a cosmic wish by applying science. So and I have literally hundreds of science cards and hundreds of activity cards. And so what I do is I'll just randomly, you've seen oracle cards and people doing things like that. Well, this is my science version of that. Basically, I will randomly draw a card. They'll have a wish in mind, and the wish will usually be, and I'm not going to totally give it away because I want to have you all officially on the show and do officially your wishes. But I could definitely read one of these because I think you might find this interesting. And it is kind of oracle-like because the cards seem to really fit the wish. Like, I don't know, because there are literally 200 activity cards or 200 science cards. So I went way crazy on creating these things.
Beautiful.
And so I'll draw a card and I'll read this. So we'll talk about the wish, and then I'll read the science that goes with the wish. And then we'll talk about how can that science help you strengthen your wish. And then we'll go through an activity and do a similar thing. And I just made an update to this, but this is totally random. And on the top, you'll see little icons. These are the sciences on this card. And so this card includes anthropology and social psychology. Okay. So we're getting into the stuff. And the title is Network Position. And so here's where I think you'll like this actually. Wishes travel through relationships. Who you know and who they know is part of your wish ecosystem. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar found that humans can maintain about 150 stable relationships with smaller circles of 5 close intimates and 15 trusted friends inside that. Your wish moves through these layers at different speeds. Tend the inner circles first. The outer layers carry your wish further than you'll ever see.
Ooh, I love that. That is so cool. Wow. All right. Well, I'm excited for us to have a session with you where we get to do our wishes and go through that, and we will. And I thank you so much for inviting us to do that. We have a question we always ask. Do you want to ask it, Kim?
Yeah. What is one thing that you will never apologize for?
Is for being the weird person that I am in terms of a lot of people might go, well, she's not a scientist, but she's a storyteller, but she writes these books, but she writes this book. Like, who is she? She's all these things. And I have to just authentically be myself and just make sure that if certain parts are your vibe, that's fine. If other parts are, that's
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. Authenticity. I mean, when we speak about energy, it is truly the highest energetic frequency that one. A lot of people think that it's love, but it's actually truth and authenticity. So when you are true to who it is you are, that's how we attract exactly what we want and what is meant for us and the relationships and the people that are our vibe. So yes, to being unapologetically yourself. I love that so much. And authenticity is one of my core values. So
Yeah, me too.
I'll interject there and just say that one thing that I have as an activity in the cards is turn your value into a wish. So when you have your list of your core values, then how do you turn that into a wish? So there's an activity that you can think about.
Ooh, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm thinking about that, and I'm loving. And I was taught once by someone. It was she's Buddhist, and she taught me once. She said, when you're praying for someone, and I wonder what you think about this. When you're praying for something and for someone, I mean, when you pray for someone specifically, pray for what to happen, for something to happen for their highest and best, and don't assume that you know what that is. And I thought that was like a real epiphany for me, because I used to think, I know for them, I need to pray hard for this for them. And it's, what if that's not in their highest and best? And how dare I think that I know what's in their highest and best? So I'm sure that could be a whole other podcast. We could talk about what that means, but I just want you to know how much I appreciate you finding us, what you're sharing with the world. I hope that I wish for everyone who's meant to find you in this work to find you easily, with ease, and to feel the love and the safety that comes from being able to make wishes, knowing in the way that you know will actually come to fruition because of the technologies and sciences that you've been researching and continue to research and bring to us.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm just really looking forward to also flipping the script a little bit and having you on my show and then sharing it, of course, with your fans and letting them know what you're wishing for and helping them join in, just like this card. I mean, this card is the precursor to what we're going to do, right? We're going to show you with your wish and let your fans and followers join in on your wish and elevate your wish and expand it and spread it. So I can't wait to do that as well. That's going to be really
cool. And where is the best place for people to find you, Brownell?
I'm the only Brownell Landrum in the world, so it's pretty easy to find me. The YouTube channel is probably my best channel because that's where most of my stuff is going to be. And you can also on all the other social media, and brownelllandrum.com is my website. So it's pretty easy to find me there too. Amazon, if you're looking for books. Other book too. So
I'll definitely check out that children's book and share it with my kids. And we will share your website and socials in the show notes. Thank you so much for being with us today. And anybody that loved this episode, please take a screenshot and share it to your stories. Share it with a friend. Make sure you are subscribed. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review.